Python is a general-purpose programming language, and it's great for creativity and problem-solving skills. It is also great for beginners because of the use of simple syntax. It can also be considered valuable to employers like Google, Dropbox, and Reddit. It also supports Windows and a variety of different platforms, and it has a large community of users where you can seek out help and find answers whenever you get stuck. Python also has a large collection of libraries and tools. This allows you to pull in powerful functionalities such as complex data analysis and visualizations into your programs with a single line of code. A huge variety of web applications are built in using Python. And also, it's popular with mathematicians, scientists, and statisticians due to the open source libraries for high-level mathematics and data analysis. Python can be used to read and organize files, scrape web pages for information, download pictures, or send emails and text messages. It can be used to automate day-to-day tasks, and Python can also write a program and have it do it for you, basically. Before we go into it, I'd like to just point your attention to the resources that are available to you for free online. As a library patron at the Bloomingdale Public Library, you have access to online courses. If we click on that, we see that lynda.com here is available. And lynda.com is useful in that it offers thousands of high-quality video tutorials taught by respected authorities in their fields. So basically, you could take courses at lynda.com by logging in with your library card number and your library card PIN. And from there, if you were to go to the lynda.com website, you would just type in Python. And if you are a beginner, you could just type in Python beginner and the results here. Python Quick Start is the first thing here. Also, the library itself within the catalog. If you were to type in Learn Python, you could find materials that you could check out here at the library. There are also resources online, like at reddit.com, subreddit Learn Python, Stack Overflow, where you can search questions that are answered by the community. So it all starts by learning the basics. The first thing we need to do is download Python from python.org. If you're not at python.org already, you can search through Google to type in Python. In this case, it is our first result. Welcome to python.org. And you can select there. Now, for us to download Python, we need to go to the Downloads tab here on their website. And the current version, as of the recording this video, is Python 3.85 for Windows. And that is what we're using, so I'll go ahead and click there. And when I've done that, this icon down here and this little pop-up over here highlights for a second. And if we were to click on that, we would be able to install the Python programming. In this case, I already have it installed, so I don't need to do anything. But in your case, if you haven't already installed it, feel free to do so now. That's basically what we'll do there. And I'll go ahead and cancel out of there because I already have it. And I'll minimize these folders. And Python looks like this. We have these two icons. Because we're learning how to use Python, we're going to click on idle, which accesses the Python shell for us. And as you see, it is in the dark theme, but if you prefer, you can go to options here, configure idle, go to the second tab there, highlights, and switch it to classic, which would give it a lighter background. But it's up to you. My preference is dark, so I'll go back to configure idle, then the highlights tab, and switch it back to dark. So now we can type Python commands directly into the Python interpreter and it will immediately execute. So now that we have Python installed, we can directly type commands into Python with the Python interpreter and it will immediately execute. So the first thing we're going to do is type in parenthesis and quotation mark. Hello world. And with the quotation marks and close the parentheses and enter. So what just happened? We are in the interactive shell, which means Python is waiting for you to send a command, which we did by hitting enter. Python didn't encounter any errors, so it went ahead and executed a command and printed hello world. Now, let's try to make a mistake intentionally to see what happens. So we'll do the same thing almost. We'll type in print, parentheses, quotation mark, hello world, and then we will purposely not put a quotation mark at the end, and we'll press enter and see what happens. So as you can see, Python was trying to give us hints as to where we went wrong. Notice that nothing bad happened either. Mistakes are definitely important parts of learning a program. And generally, the more mistakes we encounter, the better we can be at fixing them in the future. Another fun thing that Python can do is that it can be used as a basic calculator. So for example, if I were to press 1, then add the plus sign, another 1, enter, it returns a 2. So let's go ahead and restart everything just to start over and refresh our memory. We clicked idle to open the Python shell, and I double-clicked on it to maximize the screen. And so when we open idle, the first screen we see is the shell, which allows us to type Python commands and have them executed immediately. In general, we want to run more than one line of code at a time. So the Python shell is great for debugging or testing things out, but generally our programs are going to be more than one line long. We could type them out one at a time in the shell, but if we made a mistake on any one of them, we would potentially have to start over and retype all the lines that came before it. Instead, what we'll do is create a file using our built-in editor in idle. In order to do so, we would click File, and then New File, and this will bring up the editor. And what I'm going to do now is resize the shell and then the editor. The editor's on the right and the shell's on the left. Now, so we can see both of the windows at the same time. Now let's type a command into the editor. So we'll go ahead and do the print hello world once again. In order to run this, we need to save the file. So we need to click on the file menu here at the right on the top. So one more time, it's there. And go ahead and save. So click on save. And if you want to place this in a specific folder, you can. I have it in the Python 3832 folder, which it saves to by default, but you can, of course, save it to your documents or your desktop, wherever you like. And I'm going to name this file hello world.py. And I actually already did this earlier, so I'm going to go ahead and replace the one that already exists. So now I can run this program by going to run and selecting run module, or by clicking F5. And so this is the editor, and by running module, it returned in the shell hello world. So we basically had the same thing that happened earlier today in the video, but we did it through the editor and it returned into the shell. Do you think you could write code to print the results of a basic calculation like 1 + 1? So let's go ahead and give that a try. And then, of course, we need to run the module, but every time that we add more information to the editor, it will ask us to save beforehand. So that didn't work. We would need to add some more information. There it is. So it returned hello world and a 2. And as you can see in the editor, we have both lines in there. And we saved it and then we ran it. So I'm going to go ahead and clear out everything and restart idle. And I'll go ahead and, well, actually, let's keep it this size. If we wanted to access that program that we started earlier with Hello World, we can go to File, Open, and luckily for us, the Python folder is already set, so we just need to click on Hello World here, and there it is. So we have the editor here on the right and the shell on the left, and we can run it, and it'll work. I'll go ahead and close this out, and we're going to move on, and then I'll maximize the Python shell. And we can now discuss basic data types. And there are 3 types that I'm going to go over: integers, operators, and floats. First is integer. So the first type of number that we'll work with is integers, because those are whole numbers that don't have decimal points. So for a few examples, 1, if I press enter, there it is, 10, and the numbers can be very large as well. So 789,456. Python is equipped to pretty much use any kind of integer that you can come up with. So that's really good. And the reason we're going over numbers is because think about the fact that we use computers for numbers front and center most of the time, whether it's counting for the number of likes on a YouTube video, or keeping score on a video game, or viewing your check account balance. You'll see that numbers are very important, and that's the main reason that you see modern computers around now, because they do very good calculations for us and they can do them fast. So Python is also very good at working with numbers, and that is why we're going over this now. The next thing I want to go over, so we just went over integers, is operators. So operators can be like the plus sign, minus sign, star. In this case, 1 + 1 will return you 2, because by default, Python is very good at calculations, and it uses the plus sign as indicating the operator as addition. And then the next one I'd like to go over is the subtraction sign. So if we were to go 2 minus 2, enter, the minus sign acts as subtraction, and you get 0. If you want to do multiplication, you would go 3, star, and 2, and 6. And that sign there acts as multiplication. And if you wanted to do division, let's go ahead and do that again. 3 / 2 / there acts as division, and it gives us 1.5. And notice that when we divided 3 by 2, we ended up with a number that had a decimal place. In Python, this is called a float. When we do division, the result is always going to be a float, even if the result is a whole number. So for example, 10 divided by 3 is 3, 0. Also, if you combine floats with integers, you will always get a float back. So let's say, for example, 2 plus 2.5, 4.5. There you go. There's a float. So now that we know how to do basic calculations, go ahead and give it a shot. Practice around with it. See if you can come up with different ways of having Python output the number 15, for example. So let's say 5 plus 5 plus 5, 15. 10 plus 5, 15. And if you want an even bigger challenge, you can try to figure out how to do exponents, such as 3 raised to the third power. All right, I'll just go ahead and put in 2 stars there, see what happens there. And we're going to go ahead and create a new file and place the editor on the right. And let's go ahead and save, because we're going to name this strings.py. And what we're going to go over now is an important part of programming, that is strings, and this is how displaying text is going to be dealt with. So if you think about a cell phone, there's text all over, whether it's text messages or the names of apps or the alerts that pop up instructing you to do something. Whenever you need to work with anything that has to do with sentences or words in Python, we'll use something called a string. And for this example, we already have the editor set up for strings.py, and we're going to go ahead and put in these 2 strings. First one, which you remember, is hello world. And the second string, instead of having double quotes, I'll use a single quote. And I'll run it, and we can save it. And you notice that both results were returned in the shell. So double quotes or single quotes are fine to use here. It's really up to you which one you want to use, except when you're using quotes within the string. So for example, if I were to type in print and then double quote, my dog's name is Penny, double quote, be able to see that return to us here. Let's try another example. If I were to just go ahead and put a single quote, another single quote, you'll see that something's not right here. It won't let you do it. If we were to run it, it would tell us it was invalid syntax. So we would need to fix quotes at the end. And now it looks fine. It's basically the same thing that we have up here, only with the lowercase b on Benny. One more example. So for single quotes, a single quote there, then I'll say, and then actually let's go ahead and just type that in, and there we go. Should work out. Let's see. Yep, there it is. So we had to use single quotes to end and start the string. and we have the double quotes within it. How about this example? So, use the double quotes like normal. My dog's name is Benny, one more time. However, add a little more to this. So I don't want to close that off just yet. I want to go ahead and type in upper and open and close parentheses, and then one more close. See what happens if I go ahead and run that. Okay, so if you see at the very bottom here, my dog's name is Benny, but you see that it doesn't look quite like the other two that I had already there. As you can see, when I put upper, it basically put all the text in uppercase. How about if we try one more time? But this time, try it in lower. Well, lower basically would probably be the opposite of upper, and you'd see nothing but lowercase. So maybe that's not as interesting. How about title? That would be interesting. And if you look at the bottom here, the string came out with title case. So all the very first letters of each word are capitalized. And in this case, S is also capitalized as well. So that's a fun thing. So these are just some examples of Python string functions. And there are plenty of others that you can discover using the official Python documentation that you can find at python.org. A big part of programming is efficiency. This is where variables come in. Think of variables like a box. We can put a label on that box to tell us what is inside of it. We can also switch out the content of the box if we want. So I want to show you how this works. So we'll go ahead and make a new file. The editor will be at the side and the shell will be there. And let's go ahead and type in quotes my dog's name is Benny. Benny is cute. Period. In quotes and parentheses. And just go ahead and run that. And we can just name this file variables. This program. And when we ran it, go back to the shell, we'll see that it printed my dog's name is Benny. Benny is cute, just as expected. Notice how the word Benny appears twice. What if I wanted to change this to a different dog's name? I would need to change the word Benny in two different places, here and here. So in this example, it's not a big deal, but imagine if we had to program Benny in hundreds of lines long in a span of multiple files. It could be error prone to try and find and replace the word across multiple files. So instead of doing that, what we could use is this function called the variable. We can use a variable called dog. Just go ahead and put that in there, dog name. And let's say equals quotes Benny. This is the way we were going to store the name Benny in Python, declaring it as a variable. And you see it's pretty simple to do so. And this is how we decided the name. And all we have to do is just put an equal sign here, and that's how we assign a value to that variable. We'll go ahead and run the module, save it, and we still get the same thing. Nothing's changed here really. So we now have a variable storing our dog's name, but how do we include it within the string so that we don't have to retype it? For that, we will use an F string. F stands for format. So what we'll do is we'll take the first string here, just copy it, and then delete it. We'll move up the dog name, the variable there, to the first string, and then the second string will just paste the original first string. And there we have my dog's name is Benny. Benny is cute. And so we moved the variable, the information up, and replaced the second line with our original string. And so now we're going to edit the second line. And so what we're going to do is go to the beginning of the string here between the quotation marks and the parentheses. I'll type in an F. And then we're going to replace the word Benny with some curly brackets. And put dog name there. And do the same for this one as well. Curly brackets, dog name. And you see the differences that we made to it. We added the F between the parentheses and the quotation mark, quotes, and added curly brackets with the variable name where Benny was. And let's see what happens if we run the module. Okay, so it replaced it to my dog's name is Benny. You see that it looks just like the original ones. The only difference is the second string doesn't have Benny anywhere in it. It just refers back to the original string there. So if I wanted to change Benny to Spike, let's go ahead and run that again, save it. And there it is. My dog's name is Spike. It changed it in both places. So as you can see, Python has replaced every instance of the variable dog name with the value of which is Benny, and then it switched over to Spike. So that is one way that you can use a variable. So there's some things that should be noted when you're dealing with variables. Variables can only contain letters, numbers, and underscores, and they cannot start with a number. They cannot use a space, and it's best to avoid Python keywords when you're creating these variables. One of the most common errors that happens in misspelling the variable when you try to use it. If I forget to add the underscore in dog underscore name and try to run the program, Python will tell me that the name dog name is not defined. The actual variable is dog underscore name. So be careful with using the same exact naming of your variables. If you ever encounter a name error, it's a good place to start looking for your mistake. Go ahead and try to create some more variables on your own. Can you create a variable containing your name? What about your age? Can you print a message outputting those two? And can you print your name in uppercase, lowercase, and title case? So this wraps up our Intro to Python course at the Bloomingdale Public Library. Of course, you can always find more resources at mybpl.org and find lynda.com through us using your library card number. You can also check out library materials from us, looking for Learn Python in the catalog. Also, the materials in Reddit for Learn Python as well, and then just generic Google searching and YouTube videos. There are tons of resources out there for you to learn Python. Thank you very much for joining me, and take care.